And welcome everybody to the premiere episode of the MCU Rewatch. I'm here with my man Morgan. And with the ENDGAME literally 2 weeks away, we're going to try our best to watch all the MCU movies and do a brief, revisit and where it all began. And of course we have to start with Iron Man.
Yeah. Dude, I love hearing the sound of 2 weeks away. That sounds right.
No, it's 4 weeks away.
4, yeah.
Game of Thrones is 2 weeks away.
Yeah,
I got confused.
No, 4.
Well, hell, we got more time now. We don't have to stress about if we're gonna be able to watch all the movies.
Right, don't have to pull all-nighters to watch all the movies now.
But so, Iron Man was released in 2008. It was the first. It was the flagship movie of the newly formed Marvel Cinematic Universe. I mean,
and for today's standard, it still holds up pretty well too.
Oh yeah. I was talking about it in another podcast as far as like how, like James Cameron said he had written Avatar, 10 years prior to when he actually made it.
Yeah.
And he said the reason why he sat on it for so long, it was because the technology didn't exist for them to make this kind of the movie that he wanted.
Yeah.
And that could, and you can use the same argument of why they never, because I'm sure at some point they maybe pitched an Iron Man movie before.
It just didn't sound right, or didn't sound like it was gonna work.
Yeah, the technology just wasn't there for them to do it.
Well, that CGI is still amazing.
Well, even
today,
even 11 years ago when they made the first Iron Man.
Yeah.
I mean, when he's standing there and they're putting that suit on him, I mean, you really believe that he's getting, riveted.
You believe it's a real suit.
And you just think of how, especially too, and I don't want to start going off into a rabbit hole 2 minutes in.
Another 54-minute long podcast.
Yeah, no. Just look at the evolution of his suits when you start with the Iron Man, right? So you have Iron Man where, you also have Mark 1 that as Obadiah would say, built in a cave with scraps.
Oh, dude, he was pissed when he said that too.
Right.
Man. He wanted that so bad.
And so, I mean, it's just really everything. The technology that he was doing at the time.
That scientist stated, like, dude, this technology doesn't even exist yet.
No, yeah. I mean, and it's like, it just shows you how smart you can be when it's necessary.
Oh, yeah.
Because he was in that cave connected to a car battery.
Right, for like the first 15 minutes.
Yeah, he's trying to keep himself from dying. You'll be surprised how creative you are when self-preservation comes into play.
It shows how smart he is too. The suit doesn't make him, he makes the suit.
Right. And that the suits are just an extension.
Yeah.
Cause see, and that's one of the points I wanted to get into is like at the beginning of the Iron Man, you see Tony and he's just a playboy. He's a billionaire, just like billionaire playboy philanthropist. Well, he donates to charity. I'm not going to sit here and try to pronounce that word. And so, he's just living a playboy life. He's sleeping with hot broads.
Hint of him trying to think of being a superhero.
No.
There's no.
He's just doing Tony. He is like sleeping with supermodels, driving super fast cars, flying in private jets.
Right.
Making billions of dollars a year.
Attendants ended up being freaking strippers at one point.
You got a stripper pole in your plane.
Yeah. Like he knew what he was doing.
There's no more. I don't know if you could have been a more boss move than to just like hit a button. And of course, Rhodey's in his ear trying to give him like honor and respect. And Tony's like, yeah, for real. Okay, hold on. And he hits the button and the pole comes up. Yeah. So you just see, and I think they do a really good job kind of laying down a baseline, of what the character, who the character was.
Oh yeah.
And even by the end of that movie, well, obviously, and it correlates to real life that so he's on the plane, he's had the strippers, he goes to Afghanistan. Yeah. He puts on the demonstration for the generals.
Well, at the end of the movie, he's way more mature than he was in the middle because he had no idea that Obadiah has signed on to these things to send them off to Afghanistan or wherever they went to. And
obviously too that you didn't know that Obadiah was trying to kill him either.
Yeah.
You figure.
Well, I was just trying to get to the point. He's not as naive anymore. his
mindset
has.
I mean, even when I watched the movie and I saw when the convoys attacked, I'm just thinking, well, they're just trying to capture like a super rich guy.
Yeah.
I mean, you didn't know at the time that Obadiah was even behind that.
Yeah, you had no clue.
Yeah, you didn't know about his
right hand man, basically.
Right, forever
stabbing him back.
Yeah, because Obadiah worked with his father Howard.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then now Howard Stark dies, in which, we didn't know at the time, but later in Civil War, you figure out that it's Bucky as the Winter Soldier.
Yeah. Or it's the Winter Soldier, but it is.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah.
It's the Winter Soldier that, knocks off Howard Stark. And so, and I guess that was in the 90s, right? Was it 91 in Civil War when they talk about...
No, it's later. It's in the 80s, early 80s. It's like 81 when his parents passed.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I watched that movie so many times, dude. December 16th, 1981. That's all he wants to know. You sure
was it with 91?
Yep. It's 81.
All right. I'll take your credit. If you're listening to the podcast and he's wrong, please feel free to comment on Twitter.
Blow up everything. All social media.
Or YouTube at the Nerdified Podcast. Remember to like and subscribe and hit your bell for notifications so you know when a new podcast is live. We're also now going to be on SoundCloud for you youngsters who do that thing, because I didn't know about it till my buddy told me. So anyway,
December 16th.
Yeah. So anyway, Howard dies. Tony has to take over.
Yeah.
And then the whole time there, we assume that Obadiah is still working for Stark Industries. And so with Howard going down, maybe he sees that as his chance to
take the throne.
Yeah, to assume power of Stark Industries. Then all of a sudden, like this, Tony kind of comes in.
Well, he's smart. He graduated, whenever he said he did, and he took. So
I mean, even in that montage where he's accepting that award in Las Vegas. And and they're doing those magazine covers,
yeah,
and it was always Obadiah in the background.
You can tell when he was accepting that award, he was like, "I want y'all to say Obadiah Stane, not Tony Stark."
And there was like one cover after Howard died, I think it was like Newsweek or Time, where it's just Obadiah
looking at the globe,
looking down, and then right after that, he's back off in the background.
It's back to Tony,
Yeah, it's back to second fiddle. Another Stark has assumed power and taken them into the future. And I mean, you don't know. Howard and Tony, even when you see the character Howard Stark in like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., they're real similar in their way of like, they focus on a problem. They're builders, they're fixers. You know what I mean? And so even with Howard Stark, as a younger Howard Stark in the S.H.I.E.L.D. series, that's all. He's just solving problems. But in the meantime, he's also banging broads.
And Iron Man
getting
2,
hammered.
They're showing the real clips, or he's watching the real clips, and his dad's getting drunk. He's like,
"I'd
like to personally show you my ass."
Yeah. And so that's where we find Tony in the beginning. Is just living Tony Stark that, from what little that I've read in the comics, is pretty accurate. He's just super rich, super playboy, just living a life that...
There's no hint of him wanting to...
Yeah, he does not care what's going on in the outside world because it's not affecting the life that he's living now. So he goes to Afghanistan. He puts on his big presentation for the generals for the Jericho missile.
And then from out of nowhere, it's like a Hail Mary. He just gets...
So anyway, he's on his way back. And like I said, we didn't know at the time at the beginning of the movie. Spoiler alert. I forgot to add that in the beginning. But if you hadn't seen Iron Man and you're listening to this podcast...
It's 2019 now.
You just need to turn it off and unsubscribe. Because obviously you're not going to pay attention to what the hell we're talking about.
They released other movies other than ENDGAME?
Yeah.
What?
It's not just Infinity War. I mean, that's the biggest grossing Marvel movie, but it's not the only one. So he gets attacked in the Humvee. He gets thrown. He gets injured. And even in that scene too, where, he's behind that rock and that missile lands, but it's unexploded. He looks over and he sees Stark
Industries.
Yeah, he sees his logo on the side of that missile. I think even then, that was probably like the beginning.
That was eye opener probably for him,
right?
Because he's Stark Industries.
His last moment on Earth, right? Is almost poetic, right? That
the stuff that he's made almost killed him.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That his last moments, because I mean, he couldn't have known that missile wasn't gonna kill him.
Yeah.
Right. But he knew that he was fixing to die. He didn't know that he wouldn't, right? But in that moment, because it was only like from here to the door, this missile lands, and any other person in the world would die if it explodes. But he happens to survive.
It's got that plot.
So that traumatic moment of him, in the middle of the desert, fighting for his life, trying to survive, a missile lands next to him, and he can read the fact that it's the Stark Industries missile.
He made it, or his factory made it. Yeah.
And so to me, I think that was the eye opener. That was the beginning of the change of him kind of thinking, "What the hell am I doing? What am I building? What is my legacy going to be?"
I kind of get the hint that that mentality never left him. He's just learned how to suppress it a little bit more, because how he said when he's building the suit, he goes, "There's the next mission. There's nothing more."
Yeah. I mean, I think he needed... I mean, that may be true, but it's not so much that it was a mission. It was like a next
objective. It was what he wanted to do next.
Something for him to tinker with. Something else for him to fix or build or create. And of course, and it wasn't just one singular thing that kind of changed his attitude.
No.
It was the missile with his brand on it. It was being in the cave with Yinsen. And then, him, because, they bonded together.
Yeah.
Yinsen saved his life.
We saw the human side of Stark in that cave.
Well, yeah. But even more so, and I thought that this was really a good acting job, was when they created the Mark I, got it up and rolling, and he's getting out, and he finds Yinsen laying on that those bags of rice or grain or whatever, and he was like, "We were supposed to make it out of here," and I don't know the quote, but basically it was Yinsen saying, "No, this was always the plan."
He's like, "Yeah, my family's dead. This is where my road was gonna end."
Yeah, I was always going home to see him. You just didn't know that they were already dead.
Yeah,
and my plan from the beginning was to die helping you get out.
In a way, and I still think he carries, the memory of Yinsen. Tries to live up to, because he said, you're a man with everything, but with nothing.
Right.
So I think in a way he was trying to tell him.
And what's that quote he tells him? He tells him something about a second chance or to do something different, and Yinsen tells him, "Don't waste it."
Yeah.
Don't waste your second chance.
Yeah.
And it's a combination of those events that you start to see the change.
Well, these events, and plus, we haven't talked about this movie yet because we haven't watched it, but Avengers, he sees, there's more threats out there that are not Earth-based.
Right. But I don't think you couldn't have Tony grabbing the missile headed for New York had he not experienced what he experienced in the first Iron Man.
Yeah. They couldn't throw that movie out there like nothing because we wouldn't have had any story for Thor.
Yeah, because Tony been like, "What do you want me to do? What now? You want me to grab this missile and ride it into a wormhole into space?
What's Plan B?"
Yeah. You didn't hear me talk about cut the wire?
All right.
I'm not going to lay on the wire.
I told you 30 minutes ago I'd rather cut the wire.
Yeah.
And you're telling me that.
Yeah. So and that's another part that I really enjoy about Feige and Marvel and the production team that handle all these movies is how they
there's no podcast going on in here. It's okay.
No, please drive your obnoxiously loud truck while we're trying to record a podcast.
It's okay.
I apologize, ladies and gentlemen, about a-holes riding around with their dual exhaust on a Sunday afternoon because they have nothing better to do than to ruin this podcast. Anyway,
right. Like we heard Polly's doing this.
Yeah. Oh, he's recording a podcast.
Let's mess with this shit.
Yeah, let's go do everything possible to make noise. And then somehow the universe goes, "Hey, all you birds are to live around the house." I'm surprised the woodpecker hadn't started hammering on the tin roof. So anyway, I'm sorry. I apologize for getting angry. So yeah, so you wouldn't have had Tony grabbing the missile in Avengers had he not started to change.
What happened in that cave,
because it really told him that it wasn't all about him.
Yeah.
And even though that you kind of see in the beginning of the movie that he talks about charity and you know donating money and doing all this stuff, that's just all PR.
Yeah.
You know, he don't even see the money.
Yeah, well, they even said they built that big arc reactor in the factory to shut up the hippies.
Right. And, you know, in that technology, and that's what we were getting to earlier about before we started recording, was perseverance, self-preservation. You know, you if you're a smart guy and you don't know, have you ever tested yourself? The one big test that you're always going to have is if your life is in danger.
Yeah.
And when you're trying to figure out how to save yourself, and it was just him at this point.
Yeah.
You know, it's another form if you have other people that you care about. You know, it's like if it's your kids or your girlfriend or wife.
Well, he literally has, other than Pepper, nobody.
But that's what I'm saying. It was all about him.
Yeah.
And even though, and he was still like a selfish guy at this point.
Oh yeah.
And so you see him get out, and he has the press conference where he talks about where you start talking about him shutting down the arms division of Stark Industries. And then even for me, when I watched it, and I kind of knew something was hinky, and I don't want to say that the movie was predictable, but I kind of figured out right. Well, at least when the missile there,
you kind of saw that was going to happen.
I asked myself, well, how the hell are these guys getting Stark missiles?
Yeah.
If he's selling supposedly
you
to the good guys.
You kind of saw that happen though, man. He's like, well, I've never seen the repercussions of me, you know, selling these weapons up until I saw that, you know, missile right in front of my face.
Yeah, like the ultimate thing of having, you know, you build all these creations of death, you know, all these versions of, you know, to spread, you know, pain and death to all these people, and you're just selling a product. Yeah. You know. Well,
we saw in the early, you know, early part of the movie, he never gave a second thought of, you know, they could be double dealing. They could.
Yeah, well, he didn't care.
Yeah.
You know, his profits were still doing what they were doing. He was still making money. He was
There's
still
no
able
need for him to care.
Yeah, he could still fly anywhere in the world he wanted to go or drive any car he wanted. Yeah. But, you know, it's like anything in life. You can be oblivious. And sometimes people choose to be oblivious, or some people really don't care.
Or ignorant. They're just.
Yeah. But when something hits home, right?
Finally opens your eyes. You're like.
Yeah, you're just like. And it gives you a sense of not just of, you know, makes you grateful, but it also gives you, you know, empathy for other people who are going. And you know, you saw all of this stuff start to happen, especially when he had empathy when he was sitting there after he had already got close to completing the suit, and they start talking about Jensen's hometown, right, and getting destroyed by the 10 rings. And then he was just like, that was like the point where he knew he had to do something.
Yeah.
And that's when that's when we see him.
Well, and he also said, you know, there's when he did the surgery on Stark, you know, he saved some of the needles.
Right.
And then he said, well, you know, some of this has happened before in my village. You know, there's people that walk around for weeks just waiting to die.
Yeah, The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when he sees the news report of all the refugees, you know, going to, what was it, Golmira was called? I think it was Golmira.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He's sitting there fixing his repulsor too.
Yeah, he's sitting there cranking.
Mad, and finally.
And that's when he's like, I got to do something about it. And that's where you see, I mean, that was right at the top going to the other side of the hill. Like,
well, I feel like, okay, so he watched the news stuff, and I feel like he felt responsible, you know, like, you know, these people are walking out of their villages because of the weapons I made.
Right.
And there's, you know, I don't have, you know, no one in my company has told me, you know.
Right. And even that news reporter that hit him up at the fireman's charity.
Oh, she hit him hard with those pictures.
Yeah, she had the pictures. And so, and that happened even before he was seeing the news. Or maybe she had told him about that too. But anyway, flash forward to him sitting on the couch, and he sees that news report, and he's just like, there's something going on.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because she even talks about, like, he goes, I don't know anything about this.
Yeah.
I just make the stuff. I don't handle
and right
this.
After that, you know, she goes with him to talk to Obadiah, and Obadiah straight up tells him, you know, they're in public, and he says, I'm the one that tried to lock you out. Like, what do you think was going to happen?
Yeah. It's, you know. So it's one of those. So so that's the turning point that's the rebirth of the Tony that we see later on.
Yeah.
And we see through all of the MCU movies that we see from there on.
Well, it's like we said before podcast too. He's not the same Iron Man he was in the first Iron Man, but he's way different in Homecoming. Because he sees this kid that he's recruited,
right?
That he's got to watch out for. Not watch out for, because he's got the ability to do.
Well,
it.
no, I mean, Tony doesn't have any kids, and he sees a guy that's gifted and he's smart.
Yeah.
And I mean, even with me, if I saw a kid that felt like he needed guidance, I would do things for them too. It's just like in your nature. And maybe he didn't have the most grand role model in Howard, his father.
Yeah.
But your parents may not be perfect, but I mean, they still at some point still give you guidance, even if it's kind of jacked up.
Well, they show his kind of, his Nick Fury in Iron Man 2 is like, your dad said you're the only one that can complete this,
right? And
he comes back with, dude, his happiest day was sending me off to boarding school.
Yeah,
because he was so cold and calculated.
Well, that's and that goes into, because I've seen people who are like really intelligent, like really smart, and sometimes I don't know, it's not a technical term, but like their brain is so full of all this crazy stuff that they can imagine or do or build, that sometimes there's not enough room for like other things like empathy. And it's not that they don't care.
Some of them don't even know how to interact with with other human beings, because they're so smart. They're trying to. And
so you see that kind of with Tony and with Howard, is that they're just really incredibly smart guys, and sometimes the little things get pushed to the wayside. Right. And it's not like they don't care. Yeah. It's just that sometimes they're just consumed. Well, it's like you said earlier.
They're just they go problem after problem after problem trying to fix it. Right.
And anything that's not a big problem or a challenge just kind of gets pushes to the side. It's not brought into the forefront. But it's like when I'm circling back around, it's like, it's not like they don't care. It's just that they're concerned with other things, or more importantly, when you're that smart, is that you also, whether you admit it or not, have a big ego. Yeah. And you just think of yourself as that important. Yeah. And you saw that in Howard and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and you also saw that in Tony and Iron Man. Yeah. So now, they have the big throwdown with Obadiah. And so, I mean...
Dude, I can't wait. So Obadiah's suit kind of reminded me of, I want a suit like that for War Machine, dude. Like, that guy's going to...
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, I was watching this... YouTube video the other day, and that's what the guy said. He wants like a Gundam style.
Yeah, just all guns facing forward,
super jacked, super like a Hulkbuster, but a roadie.
It's just for normal
guys. A War
guys.
Machine, a Hulkbuster size road machine, a War Machine roadie suit, and I'm just like, man, that would be fucking rad,
right?
If they could have that coming. And that's the whole point of all this anticipation, is like, you just don't know what they're going to do. Right. It's like, man, they've kept this thing top secret, and they're running diversions. You don't know what if what we're seeing in the trailer is even,
if it's part of the fake in the scenes movie, or real
right? Because we're all still, after we got faked out with the Hulk Infinity War, it's like we're all looking for the juke now, right? Yeah. We're all like, no.
But see, they're good directors. Yeah. They're good directors, man. They know when to post.
Well, I mean, they have to, because the part of going to the movie is having that surprise of going into a movie and watching it, and having that surprise and watch plot twist and have all that stuff. And so, especially in this digital world now, where everybody has a cell phone camera.
They almost have to film the fake scenes.
Everybody can have, you can buy pinhole cameras and have them in your shirt, and record video of scenes going on. And I like it. I like speculating.
Yeah.
But I would never want to just have it laid out for me.
Neither would I.
I just want.
That's what
I want to
they
go
basically
into the
have
movie,
to film these fake
and I
scenes,
either want
man.
to be. I either want to be saying I was right or damn, I was wrong on that one.
Yeah, for real.
So in conclusion of this one, we see that this is the creation of the Tony Stark, and then you see that you want to see one of his a part of his arc comes later on in Avengers. I mean, you know, even when we get
Avengers, that one's. I feel like we saw a different Tony Stark. I mean, yes, it was the same Tony Stark as Iron Man, but Joss Whedon also kind of directed him differently too.
Right. Well, you know, and I want to say that for the Avengers rewatch.
Yeah, that's why I'm trying not to talk about it too much.
But you know, this Iron Man, this was the beginning of the creation of the guy that's.
His redemption arc started with this.
Oh yeah, and I would even say by the end of the movie that he had, you know, he's earned enough redemption. I mean, ultimately, it's. I mean, in the public's eyes, maybe. But I mean, if you're a fan and you're a character, you kind of see like, because you know, especially when you watch them again. At the time, you didn't know, but now as you rewatch these movies, leading up to going to see Endgame,
4 weeks away, man. 4 weeks away.
You can see that you know, like the Battle of Titan, and how I mean, you can see the change in his character. And it's interesting to go back and watch movies now and watch how characters are progressing, how they're added, how their views are early on.
Yeah,
has morphed by the time you get to Infinity War, and so it was a great movie. It's a it started everything for us, you know. And before,
when they say he's the Godfather of this universe,
for sure he's the Godfather. I mean,
when you think of Marvel, you instantly think of Iron Man playing AC/DC in the background,
right? And before we go, we were wanting to touch on how they recast Terrence Howard from Rhodey,
man,
and going to Don Cheadle.
Yeah, man, I feel like this is just for shits and giggles, but I feel like they recasted him because he was a little bit bigger than the suit he made for War Machine.
Not that may go into play, but I think that I'm not saying Terrence Howard couldn't have played Rhodey, but what I will say, he killed it
for the one movie he was in, though.
Well, yeah, but he did a good job, but I think had Don Cheadle played Rhodey from the beginning,
yeah,
it'd have been fine.
Yeah,
because even when he picked up as Rhodey in Iron Man 2, and all the controversy, for me it just felt like Don Cheadle was the better player.
Yeah, I feel like Don Cheadle was made to play Rhodey.
Right. He just has that attitude, and he has the he can give you like that military, kind of honorable side of him,
and he's able to calm Tony down. Tony tries to go on a warpath.
Right.
He's like, dude, come on now, you can't be doing that. You can't. He's kind of almost the voice of reason for Tony sometimes.
Yeah, and you didn't see that so much with Terrence Howard. I mean, other than him like whining on the plane.
Yeah.
But like it was more convincing from Don Cheadle as Rhodey.
Yeah.
Than it would have been as Terrence Howard as Rhodey.
Don Cheadle killed it, and ever since Iron Man 2, I think he's been pretty solid.
No, I would have never.
Pretty solid.
Like I say,
cast.
Like I said, even if they probably should have just went with that move from the beginning. But then it goes back to this point where we talk about actors, big names, this whole deal with Angelina Jolie that I touched on in another podcast, is that at the time he was hot because he had just come off of Hustle and Flow.
Yeah.
And he got a lot of critical acclaim from that. And so they thought Robert Downey Jr., we got Terrence Howard, who just got all this acclaim from Hustle and Flow. And I'm not saying he did a bad job as Rhodey.
No.
But I don't think he could have done as good a job as Don Cheadle has done as Rhodey over the last.
Well, we talked about this in the first podcast. 11 years now, we can't imagine Tony Stark as anybody else. Same as it's almost like that. Same as Rhodey, man.
It's going to be the same with Captain America.
If they're going to recast him
as Black Widow, as Thor, as Banner.
Yeah. I
mean, the Mark Ruffalo Hulk.
I really hope that Don Cheadle becomes more relevant with the new Avengers because he's.
I think he he's a beloved character. He's a known character. People are invested in him.
Yeah.
So for him to take a bigger role in the later Avengers movies, if we're not going to have, Captain America or, Iron Man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he
it
could
makes
be the
sense to have
connection
more.
back to women. Yeah.
He could be the new moral compass. I feel like he has good enough of a moral compass that he could also be the voice of reason in Avengers if they ever have doubts of where they should be going or who they should be fighting.
Well, they kind of reflects a little bit like Captain America. Because after Captain America leaves, he's, to me, like you said, he's probably going to be the moral compass because, he's been in the military.
Right. And I'm not saying that other people, but I think he can...
He fits the role more.
Like Captain America will stand in his conviction. I think you could get the same thing from Rhodey. I think that he could plant his feet.
Yeah.
And, really voice what he's feeling and really fight for it. But, so yeah. I mean, 11 years ago. I remember I saw it in a theater. I don't think I was with my brother. He may have been there. That's a long time ago.
Yeah, you're talking about.
But I just remember thinking, man, I was like, this is crazy. I mean, it's like, and how much I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, well, back then you never thought, Marvel was still going to be around, and they still kill it to this day, man. These movies they're making are.
Well, yeah, obviously you wouldn't have known at the time of how successful it would have been.
Yeah.
But I really had a good, especially when they started with the whole post credit.
Right.
When they started teasing you to other movies that came up. I don't know if they had done it in other movies or other trilogies, but now it's just like a standard.
Oh yeah.
They do it in every movie now.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Any kind of movie that's
going
to
lead
lead
up
up
for like
to
a sequel to like a Captain America movie or Iron Man movie.
All these franchises now are adopting these post-credit, mid-credit scenes, and now and people are staying in the theaters just to see what's going on.
Right.
And, I have some gripe with some of them because, all I'm saying is like by the time the movie is over, I got to take a piss.
Right.
And I'm ready to go to the bathroom, but I'm standing in the theater right near the opening so I can see this credit.
Right.
I don't want to see Jeff Goldblum climbing out of a fucking ship and clapping and saying, "Good job, guys." I want to see something juicy.
Yeah. Well, I think that's why they gave us that first post-credit scene.
Right.
Because I think they just wanted to have a post-credit scene with just another Jeff Goldblum. Because if you have him, you got to use him.
Right. Yeah, but
still, yeah, I agree.
There's other ways that you could keep Jeff Goldblum in the mix, but like if I'm staying to the very end,
I expect something bigger than the first post-credit scene.
I need some morsels. I need some juicy morsels.
Give me something
for me to salivate over until the next movie comes out.
Give me something to lick my lips about.
Well, we're going to wrap it up for the MCU rewatch. I hope we covered enough topics. We didn't go too far down the rabbit hole.
Oh, dude, that rabbit hole last time we went.
As always, and of course, the next time we'll be doing these MCU rewatch, we'll be discussing Iron Man 2. Follow @Nerdaphyte.
It's my favorite one.
On Twitter, @Nerdaphyte, NERDAPHYTE. Go to the Nerdaphyte Podcast YouTube page, like and subscribe, and hit your bell for notifications because I upload there. Also, be looking out for the Nerdaphyte Podcast on SoundCloud. For Morgan, I'm Paul. We'll see you later.